Welcome back, everybody. Another special episode of Grow Your Tutoring Business. I've got with me Vicki Gilby, who was is now a recognised finalist Tutor Professional of the Year. And so I'm excited to be chatting to Vicki. I know Vicki's super nervous to be talking. I've tried my hardest to make Vicki feel less, like I'll feel more comfortable, but now she's made me feel nervous. So we're just going to hand over to Vicki and go, welcome, thank you. You're going to be sharing your story with us. And I've got a funny feeling that once Vicki starts talking, she's not going to stop talking because there's so wonderful things to share. But welcome, genuinely, it's great to be sharing some space with you like this. And like we've had many conversations which have always remained private. So it's going to be good to be able to share this out loud. So welcome.
Thank you. It's nice. It's really nice to be here and being brave, going for it. So
it's not easy, is it? Like a lot, I just recorded something earlier on and somebody was going through the same thing. It was like real step outside of your usual stuff. Like it's outside of the comfort zone. So it's good. It's good for us. It's good for the soul. Vicki, tell us a little bit about where you're at and why you're here. What are you going to talk to us about?
I'm just coming to share my story. Because I feel like, well, I've had a complete turnaround. So I'm hoping that other people will relate as well. If I can be any sort of inspiration, I suppose, like from where I've been and where I'm at now.
I think that this is like the point of having a space like this where people can share. This is the inspirational stuff, isn't it? Because we can go, right.
Well, I have found it really helpful hearing other people's stories. So I just want to contribute to that as well.
Excellent. So tell us, where did it begin for you?
So a bit of background would be like short version. I spent longer than I should have done getting qualified as a teacher. And I worked as a TA for quite a long time as well, and sort of picked up my degree and then put it back down, and different circumstances. Sort of, you get a bit comfortable, don't you, in in working, and it just sort of goes off the boil. And this one teacher I used to work with, actually, she one day said to me, "Why are you doing this? Why are you not a teacher?" So it was really nice, actually, because it's really the nudge that I needed, and her showing that she sort of believed in me in that way. So I took that and I finished my degree and I got my PGCE and those sorts of things. And then, I was qualified, working quite happily. And then I was like 10 years in the classroom as a teacher. And then it's just that classic tale of the happy teacher that becomes, stifled, and the micromanagement that comes in. And I very much felt the glass ceilings. I was looking to progress, and I wanted to do more, actually, and it just wasn't there. Like, I was trying to go for opportunities and it just wasn't happening for me. And then loads of little things sort of started to like knock my confidence, and like change of SLT and things like that brings in frustration. So that kind of classic tale. And then it all came to a head like January last year, so 2023, when I used to, my little girl, my youngest, was in reception at the school where I used to teach. And this one day, she wasn't coming to school with me. And this thought went through my head that, oh, Layla's not in the car. Maybe it would be a good idea to like crash the car so that that you've got like a legitimate excuse to then not have to go to work. And it's only like recently that I've sort of realized that it's frighteningly common to have that thought.
Mm.
Like not to end things, but to have some sort of bad accident, which was just an awful thing to think. And then luckily, in a way, I realized at that moment that, wow, I'm really not okay. And I suppose, like in hindsight now, I can see that that was the sort of day when it was like it was a breakdown. So I ended up, like, my husband phoned work for me and told them I wouldn't be coming in and things. And then I ended up ringing like the doctors and got in there, and like they were really great and really supportive, but everyone was really surprised and shocked. And I was really surprised and shocked that I was like off work with stress, and everyone at work was quite surprised, and my family, because I think just for so long I'd just kept going, and sort of not recognized or ignored any signs that I wasn't myself. Um, and then I wasn't myself for a good while. Like I remember talking to the mental health nurse at my GP and her saying, well, what are some things that you like to do? Like, what do you do? What do you enjoy? And I was like, I don't know. I just couldn't answer. And I was like, I barely know my own blooming name. Like, I couldn't believe how I just completely lost myself, and it was frightening. And I feel really weird thinking about it even now. Like it it was just such a strange time. But um and it's not like any, like it wasn't a huge thing that happened or anything like that. But I found this Chinese word that's ling chi, which means death by a thousand cuts. And I think that's very much like what had happened to me. It's just all those things over the years that have happened and happened. And it's just then all just came to a head and sort of spilled out. So yeah. But I, like, in hindsight now, I think there obviously were signs, because a few things had happened where, I mean, I don't want to go into any details, but there was this incident where I felt really like humiliated in front of the whole staff, and it's quite a big staff where I used to work. And it really affected me to the point where I've never really had a massive problem with like public speaking, standing in front of like a crowd or anything like that. And after that had happened, it was like a few months later that I just had to speak for 5 minutes in a staff meeting to give an update. And my body was so anxious, like my heart was absolutely racing. I was shaking, and I was thinking, I can barely speak to get my words out. I couldn't breathe. And I thought, I can't have that like ongoing. So I actually got a public speaking coach that I knew to like help me, because I knew I had this other quite big meeting coming up, and I thought I need to be ready for that. And she was great. Like she really helped me sort of like try and, conquer that fear. But I was sort of like, that fear was put into place because of like people sort of being a bit mean, Um, and then I think that sort of thing like really got to me too, like way too much. So when I was off work, I sort of did a few things to like get myself right, I suppose. So I had a lovely counsellor, lovely Helen, she is. And I talked to her, and probably for like the first time ever, really opened up to her about not just like all the worky stuff, but loads of things that had happened in like my personal life, and even going back years and years. Like I have had some like rough times, like domestic abuse, and I wanted her to answer this question for me that was, why do people see me as someone who can be bullied when I don't see myself like that? So I don't see myself as a like a weak person, or I don't see myself as being like soft. um but I wanted her to answer me, why do other people see me like that? Why do they think they can take advantage of me? And it was quite like, I think she was quite shocked by my that question. And she sort of said that that's not a thing. You're not that type of person. You're not a weak person or anything like that. It's just that those people have chosen to behave like that. And that was quite a turning point for me, that it's not me. So I
Vicky, is that
think,
in that moment, is that like the first realization that these things happen outside of you? This isn't something that's an internal thing. Is that
yeah, exactly. So I had probably for years and years, like I've been sort of asking myself, well, why have I allowed that to happen? Or, and things like it's, I have a probably a bit of a hang up, or had a bit of a hang up, that it's when things happen to you, it's actually embarrassing, because it's like you've allowed that to happen, So even things like that, you would never predict and never want to happen, like, you know, being in an abusive relationship.
mm,
Nobody knew, I didn't know that was going to happen, and there were no signs of it, because that's the way it goes. But I was so embarrassed by it, and I attached like obviously so much shame to it, that I didn't want to tell anybody, and therefore it probably went on for longer than it should have done. And so yeah, and I don't know, maybe a feeling like I have to do everything for myself. Um, that was another thing that sort of came up. And that's something that's, like again, having been like a single mom on my own in the past, and like getting into real like financial difficulty and being totally skinned, really, to the point where, you know like there's bailiffs knocking on the door, and I'm parking my car at the top of the road so they don't know it's my car and take it away, and that those kind of things, like I suppose all those little things where I've just shouldered it all for so long, um, all kind of came, like it was just too much.
I think
So
one thing here that is sort of shouting out at me is that when you start your story with teaching, and there's even bits there I think that would be in, or you've probably done this work already, like as in particularly within your talking therapy with your counsellor, but even like the process itself to becoming a teacher actually sounded quite elongated, stressful, because it's not an
yeah,
easy process, even if you're doing it in a year or 3 years or 4 years, whichever course people take. But then there's this whole narrative before that anyway. And so when
yeah,
you
yeah.
say, I mean, because I think at the time when you was talking about, what's it called? The Chinese word?
Oh, Lingqi.
Ling Chi. When you talk about Ling Chi and that death by a thousand cuts, like automatically my mind goes, yeah, well, that's teaching. But what you're
Mm,
talking about is actually not just teaching. This is everything
mm,
that's happened in that bowl of emotions and stresses and strains and which probably doesn't do it justice to some of the stuff you've been talking about, but led you to that point where you're like in the car on your own, thinking, if I just ding this into something right now, I don't have to go and do this bit, which I don't really want to do today.
Yeah, and I think, you know what? I would also say there's a real like sadness sort of started to creep in as well, because though all those other things that had happened in my personal life, and then I qualified and I had this job and I was really happy in the job. And it was like my happy place, you know, being at work. And then that changed as well. So I suppose there's also like a bit of a feeling of sadness as well, that like that's been taken away almost. That almost protective factor of work being a really good thing then went. So that's probably another like layer, you know, to things. Um yeah, so and the other thing that I did was I really got into the whole personal development side of things, and started to like listen to loads of podcasts and read like every single book I could find on like personal development, and that really helped. And I think the one thing that stands out to me that really helped me make sense of things was, have you done it's called, I think it's called like Myers-Briggs personality type test.
Tell me what the outcome is on art, because it often comes down to different like.
Yeah. So you get like 4 letters,
Okay.
and that's your personality type. And it's quite a lengthy like questionnaire, and you I don't know. So it takes different elements and puts you into like a category. And ended up doing that. Can't even remember like what led me to that, but I did that, and it was shockingly true. I was like, that is me all over. Like, I can't believe how accurate that is. And since then, I like got all my friends and family to do it as well. And it's really quite, I think it's very accurate. So you should do it. I'd be interested to know what you've got.
Right, tell me what
So
you think I am, and I'll go and do it, and I'll let you know. What am I?
oh, that's really putting me on the spot, because there's like 16 different like types of personality. But basically, I well, it's the rarest type of personality actually, which is why I'm such a nutcase. So the it's labeled as like an advocate basically,
Okay.
and it really made sense to me then why so much work stuff was winding me up. So, for example, like my mum is completely different personality type to me, and she would say to me things like, "Well, why are you letting it get to you?" And she'd say, "Just go in, do what you've got to do, and then go home." You know, like, and it was like, I can't, because it just wasn't my way. That's not my personality. And so it's like, it really made sense why it was annoying me so much when other staff would come to me as an experienced like member of staff, uh, and they'd tell me things that had happened, and they'd cry talking to me, and I'd be, you know, like a sounding board, I suppose, for other staff. And whatever they were telling me would really wind me up, to the point where I'd be furious that they'd been spoken to like that, or they'd been asked to do X, Y, Z, you know. And then I think I was like shouldering all that as well, like taking everybody else's um concerns and things like for my own.
Mm.
Um, and it sort of made sense that, okay, that's because of who I am. And now I feel like that's really helped me, because it makes it, well, I'm out of it now. So I'm not in the stress so I can sort of see from a distance, I suppose. But now I can just go, well, you just don't align with me, and that's okay. So you do you, because that's who you are.
Well,
And
has this changed for you though? Like, so, like, if someone came to you now and they wanted to, they might not know that they're using you as a sounding board, but they are using you as a sounding board. Would you still be that listening ear, take it on, or has that bit changed?
no, probably hasn't changed.
Okay.
Because I do still get that a little bit. Obviously not as much. And it still does, I think, oh my gosh, that is awful. But I think because I am removed from it a bit more, I'm not as stressed myself.
Mm,
It doesn't like, I feel like I was going home angry, pretty much every day. And I was like, that's not who I am or who I want to be.
mm,
Um, you know, like I am genuinely a pretty like positive, like laid back kind of person. And I don't want to be like ranting about, silly things every day. So yeah, I feel like I do try and say this to other people as well, like they're just not, their values are not aligned with yours. That's why it's not working, or, you can't get on because, then obviously sometimes you do have to like find a middle ground or compromise. Um, but yeah, I find that now easier to just go, it's fine. Like they're just not
mm.
my way. Um, and then also, so you laughed at me when I said I like got into gardening as a little hobby.
No, no.
Um,
I just before you throw me under the bus. I hate gardening with a passion. Like, I cannot, mainly because I was forced to do it as a kid. I think it's just trauma. And if my mum ever
oh.
listens to this, mum, I love spending time with you in the garden. It's fine. But I was often just had this lug stuff about up the yard. I grew up on a farm, so to chuck stuff on the yard was a walk away. And I was always used to do the dog's body stuff. Anyway, but I do like gardens, and you can do whatever you like because it brings you peace. So I'm not like, don't do gardening, that's boring, not at all.
Yeah, whatever. So so I did really get into like gardening, which has really brought me like a lovely sense of calm. And
Hmm.
like now I'm seeing, because I've had to be really patient with it. And patience is something that I've had to learn because I don't like being patient. So, but seeing something grow from like a tiny seed into like this massive plant is just actually amazing. Um, but then I love a little gardening metaphor. So I was I've got some like weeds creeping through the fence from next door. And some of them are really, those really scary, sort of prickly, long vines. And so I was getting rid of those. And then I thought, these like prickly weeds are just surviving. Like they've adapted, to survive. Like that's all they want to do. And I thought that is such a great like metaphor for people, that even, like the prickliest people, they're just trying to survive. We're all just trying to survive, aren't we? And then I also heard this phrase about everybody's doing the best they can with the resources that they've got.
Mm.
And I found that actually quite freeing. That so some people, you know, like I'm not gonna lie, have treated me terribly. But if that's the best they can do with the resources they've got, then that's really sad for them. So I feel a bit sorry for them. And it also makes it really easy to say, well, I don't want that for me. So
You
I
break.
don't need you in my life, that sort of thing.
You. have you ever connected with like Gary Vaynerchuk? Have you ever listened to any of his stuff?
No.
He's just like an entrepreneur based in America, and he talks about this kind of stuff. I'm pretty sure he uses a similar analogy. Like, I'm not sure it's weeds, but it's something else. And this whole thing about people just trying to like survive and do the best they can with what they've got. And that's okay, but you don't have to align with it, and you don't have to stick around. You can also clear out the weeds, right? So you can give yourself some distance and all those things. They can still survive, but they can go somewhere else, or all that kind of metaphorical thing. But he also adds a layer to it, and he says we can still treat. Let's get rid of weeds for a minute. Let's talk about people. We can still treat them with love, but actually they might not be ready for it yet. And so either they come back, and then when they're ready, you say, do you know what? That sounded like a tricky time for you, but I'm here for you now. Or they don't come back. And either way, you continue to grow and be the person that you need to be, regardless of what's going on around you. And I think that's quite powerful. And I've not experienced things to that level, but there's been things that happened in the last year or so, which I now understand is like something called social shedding. I don't know if you heard of this.
What did you say? Sorry.
Social shedding.
Oh,
It'd be
no.
hard to say without sounding like you got a list, but so social shedding. But it's where like you really care for about who you're spending time with, being really, and you're becoming hyper aware around the language people are using around you, and actually treating you as well. So, like, I'll give you a really quick example. I watched football, one of the England games with some of my friends, really close friends who I've grown up with. So I've got a lot of love for them. One of my friends' mums was there, and we grew up like she's known us since we were really little. So, it feels like you're walking back home and you're chatting with them in particular. It feels like I'm chatting to my own mum and dad almost. And we was just talking about tuition, and we was talking about just general stuff. And she was saying, "Oh, I listen to your podcast." I was like, "Why are you listening to my podcast? She's like, this is really aimed at tutors." She's like, "Oh no, I love it." And I was like, "That's mad."
Oh.
Right. And then my friend then, it was like, oh my God, my mum listens to and doing all this stuff. And that's like the anchor. Like, I'm not saying I'm social shedding my friends, like, and I'm not seeing him anymore, but just naturally, I don't see him as much
Right, yeah.
because there is something about that. And this is something I heard a little while ago where I think it was Stephen Bartlett. He was like, social shedding is where, like, say, like, I love football, but let's say I got into dancing. And I said to my friends, "Oh, I'm into dancing." They start going, "Oh my God, what are you dancing for? Oh my God." And then suddenly you'd be like, "Oh, maybe I shouldn't dance." Just sit, yeah. But that's a real thing, right? So people will try to anchor you down to keep you the way you are because actually it's uncomfortable for them to see you grow into who you are today, whether it's Vicki Gilby, the successful tuition business owner, or whatever it may be, whatever hobby you've got, or me telling you like gardening's boring. Right. Spend less time with me, Vicky. You won't hear me say it anymore. It's fine. But these things are true, right? There's people around us who would probably prefer us to stay who we were like 20 years ago because it's comfortable for them.
Yeah, yeah,
Anyway,
exactly.
that's slightly off tangent, but I felt like it kind of worked well with the prickly people, the prickly weeds thing. That was good. I like that.
Um,
Where are we up to, Vicky? Like,
yeah. So I did all that kind of trying to rationalize, I suppose, and did all the counselling, come into terms with where I was at, and then I also found like the Facebook group, like Life After Teaching, and your group, and the Pit Pony videos, iconic. And anyway, so I went back to work after about 3 months, which felt like such a long time. It is a long time. So I went back to work, and like I almost got like tempted to, like, when you go and you go, oh, is it really as bad as I thought it was? Because loads of the people you love, and they're all happy to see you back, and the kids are just gorgeous, and they almost thought, oh, do you know what? I'll just give it another go. And then something happened, like a chance conversation happened that just was like a lightning bolt kind of moment of no, do not stay. It's not the best thing for you. There's nothing here, do not stay here. Because you're just going to set yourself up for another at least year of like misery.
Was that
So
what was that?
so it was a conversation about the plan for the following academic year. So I went back sort of just in between like Easter and Whit. I was doing like a phase return, and a chance conversation about what their plan was for me for the following year. And it was completely different to what I had I say expected, optimistically expected maybe. And two, what I had specifically said I would like to happen when I did the whole return to work risk assessment, yada yada. So I'm really grateful that chance conversation took place, because it just gave me that push that, okay, I'd have to have my notice in, like, by the 31st.
So this chance conversation, is this with the classic corridor meeting? Is it just like someone says?
No. It was like, it was it was in the office, having a conversation about something else, and then it just came up. So I don't know. I feel like that was a real, like, yeah, a moment of, this is not where you're supposed to be.
So where are you?
And obviously I'm so grateful, because where I am now is where I'm supposed to be.
Tell us a little then, like, so look, this happens, this chance meeting or the chance conversation, probably make that decision, which was probably inside your head anyway, somewhere ready to come out.
I know, and I was still sad, like to make the decision to go. I was still sad, but I thought I almost like used Sharon and the Pit Pony video and things as like a bit of a Bible, and I thought I'm going to absolutely stick to what she says, because I'm in awe of her, and so I'm going to just give it a go. And if it doesn't work out, what's the worst that can happen? So I think I have this, one of my very good friends, we have a bit of a saying of, when you're in a situation where it might not go very well, or it's a bit of a risk, we always say, but will it make a good story? So like, even the worst thing that happens, like, but would it be a good story to tell? So I try and have that outlook. So I thought, oh, do you know what? Let's just, go for it, do it. So I started in September, and I was doing supply at the same time. So, building it up, doing supply. Went to, in September, the Connexus conference, which was just brilliant. And met you there, and had such an embarrassing moment where I actually, because I'd seen your videos and with Sharon and that, and then I said hello to you as if we knew each other, because I'd seen your face on YouTube.
You think that happened there for the first time in my life ever. I had no idea how to handle stuff like that, so it was probably very embarrassing for me too. So
well, you did look like. And made loads of like nice connections, friends now, really. And I think that was a bit of a turning point. And that whole, I know like other people have said this as well, because it's really true. But that speech from Sharon was just it was emotional because it was so powerful. I mean, no offense to Drew Povey, because I really enjoyed his talk as well. But I feel like Sharon's was just the one that really got me, because it's like just yeah, you're not the poor relation, you're not the like it's not that kind of like, oh, is he doing that bit of tutoring? Like people feel sorry for you because like, well, no, actually, I've got my own business and I'm making a real success of it. So, you know,
It's nice to say that, isn't it?
yeah. Um, so yeah, so now it's sort of grown from there. I managed to like stop doing the supply by Christmas. And I've got my own space. I've got 4 other tutors who come in and do some hours as well, and we've got just over 50 kids
Wow.
coming in. And for September, so I'm obviously busy at the moment planning for September, and we've got nearly 70 coming in for September.
It's incredible. Oh, wow.
Um, yeah, so it's going well.
It's such a short amount of time like you've been doing it.
Mm.
What do you think's been the secret to that? What most of us would consider quite fast success. What do you think's really driven it?
So it's I don't like to use like the word lucky, because lucky implies that you're not doing anything. Um, so I'd rather say like I've deliberately made decisions that have worked out. um, so for example, I live about 20-25 minutes from my space. So I could have chosen somewhere like round the corner from where I live, but I chose to be here because it's where I used to work. I know a lot of families here. I've got a good reputation as being a good teacher. And that word of mouth thing is just invaluable, you know. So I think that's really helped. And honestly, so I think just choosing the right location has been key, but I also am not really that sure in, I think, and it's actually quite empowering maybe, that I've just been myself and haven't tried to be something that I'm not, which has just worked out for me,
Mm.
because in like unpredictable sort of ways. So, for example, if I get an email or an inquiry, and I personally have like on my Facebook profile, my business profile, a link so that parents can WhatsApp me, and or they can email or they can message me on Facebook, whatever. Which I know other people would not do that and keep everything quite formal and professional. And I'm not going to label myself as unprofessional, but at the same time, I have a particular style, I suppose. And I think that's worked with the families who I've connected with.
Mm.
Um, so like I'll give you an example. So a long time ago, I went for a job interview for a deputy head, and I didn't get the job. And someone said to me, asked me what did I wear going to the interview, and also asked me, because I do always have like a bright lipstick on, and asked me, did I wear lipstick to my interview, and what did I wear? So I was like, well, yeah, I always wear lipstick, so yes, I did. And I wore a dress, and the dress had a print on it that was unicorns. And they were like, well, obviously you didn't get a job as a deputy head if you're going to wear a dress that's got unicorns on it because you look ridiculous, you know? And I was like, that's actually really hurtful. But also, if I want to wear a dress that's got unicorns, like, why can't I? It doesn't mean that I'm not good at my job. And actually, it's worked out in terms of the kids who I see and the parents who I see as well love the fact that I wear dresses with unicorns or, you know, squirrels or whatever else, you know. And it, so yeah, I just think just be yourself and the right people just come knocking.
I feel like this might
It,
be the title of this video, like wear a unicorn dress for a successful tuition business. I think we've got it.
yeah. But
No,
no, but don't.
do you know what I
Because
love
Richard, if
about?
you wore a unicorn dress, it
Yeah,
wouldn't work for you.
I think that's sexist. You're probably right. Do you know what I love about it though is that there's that realization that, oh my God, if I want to have a life in the way that I want it, I just have to be myself. I don't want don't want these frictions happening anywhere. Look, running a business, there's going to be enough friction anyway, but you can do it in the way that serves you more. You can be you. Like I quite like the answer to the question, which was I've just started turning up and being me.
Yeah.
And I've become successful. And I think that in itself is a really powerful answer. I think
That
there's more to it, but at the root of it, that's it.
Yeah, but the way that you've said that then makes me go, sounds really arrogant.
No,
And that's
no, I don't.
hard.
I hope it doesn't come across like that.
Well, I hope so too.
Because it's not, because it's not. Like I've told this story many times where I started something different because my background was social services and working with children and families and doing a lot of parental support. So my original kind of idea of growing an audience, this is going back about 5 or 6 years ago now, was, you know, I'd like to connect with parents and do parenting courses and help parents with their families. But I was showing up as somebody who I thought they wanted to see and I thought they would want to connect with. And guess how well that went.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
didn't show up. I couldn't because it wasn't really who I was. And then when I actually figured out, well, what is it I'm actually doing that I could talk about? It was like, oh, I could talk about business, I could talk about tuition, I could talk about teaching because I live and breathe these things. Suddenly I could just go do a Facebook Live and just talk and just
Mm.
and suddenly it works, and that does also work in the tuition business as well. I'm just like giving you context for between those two things. So I think it's well, I really hope it's not an arrogant thing, but what I do know is that it is harder than what you think to turn up as yourself.
I agree completely. It's so tempting to be like, oh well, what will people want to see?
Yeah,
Like you say.
yeah,
And try and mold yourself into that, and
yeah.
never works.
No,
So
no.
I've really started to believe in that sort of be yourself. So, oh yeah, so going back to the communication thing as well. So if I get an email or a WhatsApp and I don't have, now I'm holding my hands up because other people would not advocate for this, but I do not have like a fixed reply, which maybe is not a good idea. I don't know, but it's worked for me so far in that I just reply really naturally to every single inquiry that I get. So I send what hopefully, and I've been told this by a parent. She said to me she made several inquiries, and my reply was the one that stood out to her because it seemed genuine and
Mm,
the others all seemed generic.
mm,
So, but at the same time, I'm not saying that this is right or wrong because, so that worked for her. That's what she was looking for. And somebody else down the road might look at my reply and be sort of like, oh, this is a bit chatty. It doesn't seem, it's not who we're looking for. We want somebody who's suited and booted, no lipstick, thank you.
I like unicorns.
That, is someone different, and that's totally fine as well.
Uh,
Um,
yeah, this kind of stuff there, you treading towards like who do you want to work with, right? So if somebody responds to the way that you message and it's positive, then it's likely they're going to have a positive relationship with you, and this is what we want. And energy coming out in that way, like, so you're putting that energy or your energy and your essence into that message, is either going to hit or not hit with a parent. And if it hits,
yeah,
because they are your ideal client, that's an easy win. It sounds like I know a lot of people will go, yeah, we do automatic messaging because it means someone's had a response, but actually the personal touch in those instances can go a long, long way.
yeah. I'd say that's probably it. It's location, 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 and the personal, you know, approach
Your business is
is,
face to face, right? You're
yes,
all face to face, 100%.
yeah,
And you've got a
completely.
center,
Yeah,
place, you've got tutors working for you. When did you start your business? Just remind us.
September.
Okay. So we really need to listen to Vicki here right now. Funnily enough, that we exchanged messages a little while ago, um, about it was about employment, wasn't it? And I was like, oh, I
Oh,
really
yeah.
want to do that. And you was like, what? You're going to get advice from me? I was like, yeah, because I haven't done that yet. Like, of course I
Yeah, I
am.
know. Unbelievable.
Oh, can you believe it? But
Yeah,
it's
still can't
genuine.
believe that.
That to me, and why the community is so strong and the group so strong, is that for the majority of us, we're all trying to make our way forward in whichever way that we see fit. And yeah, that we have mentors, or we can do courses, or we can be part of groups or accountability groups, whatever it may be. But there's always something to learn from one another, and I think that's what makes the space so strong. Vicki, is there, look, that's an incredible story, by the way, and I don't want to just like skim over it, but the like at the start when you're talking about all of those stressful things that happened, like in particularly in the early part of your life towards teaching, and then actually
Mm.
becoming a teacher, all of those things. What the question earlier on was about, what do you think has driven the success of the business? I think when you experience the life that you've had and the experience that you've had, it must build up quite a big skill set, and maybe even a hidden skill set somewhere where you can dig quite deep into resilience and maybe even hope as well. I see, because I think you have to hold on to hope in some of those cases, situations. um I'll say thank you for sharing that, because that's not an easy share. And so to have the courage and bravery just to come and go, look, this is it. I mean, at the beginning you was like, look, I'm all in,
Yeah.
and you really have been all in, which I really appreciate. And I think it just makes for a really genuine conversation, which is amazing. Is there anything
Mm.
that you haven't shared yet that you'd really like to, or anything that you'd like to just put out there for other tutors to connect with?
Um, I suppose I would I would just say like just about like going for it, and the whole, I mean, I genuinely used to think it was all a load of old nonsense, the whole manifestation thing. And I've completely turned around on that, because I now I've got a vision board on my like phone. My home screen is like my little vision board. And I've put things on there that now actually, like, I've done it. So when I did that vision board, maybe it was just before Christmas. And one of the things on it was, I really want to go to Disneyland, Disney World, sorry, I the wrong one, in Florida. I want to take the kids to Disney World. And so I was like, right, what do I have to do to get there? And so I was like, saving up, and we did it. We went in May, and it was amazing. And I would never have done that if I
Mm.
was working in school still. So that's amazing. And just, yeah, just like stuff that you want, it's yours. Just claim it. Um, And also, I'm still reeling from the TTA awards that we went to, because I got on that train and heading down to London by myself, going to this awards do, which I've never done anything like that in my life. And I felt like the total imposter syndrome really kicked in. And I don't know whether you've seen the film The Hunger Games, where they're going on the train, to the capital. And I was like, this is me. I'm like going into the Hunger Games, and walked into that room, like so many people there, couldn't believe it. And I was like, oh, I don't know anybody. And but obviously you were there, and I saw loads of lovely people, had a great time. And I can't believe, so I like came finalist, like runner up in my category, which was incredible in such a short space of time as well. And I wasn't even gonna like go for it with the awards. So that was like another kind of, I don't know, like maybe a nudge from the universe that the way a few things happened, and I thought, oh, do you know what? Maybe I should just like put the application in. And so I did, and it worked out. So
I add to this, right? Because I just want to give this some context. Like that particular award, the one that you went for, is one of the most popular ones. So there are usually over 50 applicants. I think it was 56, something like that. And the competition's high, like really high. It's a super competitive category, one of the most competitive, if not the most. And so just to be a finalist is like such an achievement. It is such an achievement. And some of the people who even make the
yeah.
top 10, like it is
Well, I mean, just I was blown away when it was shortlisted anyway.
yeah.
So then to get the finalist, and I've got the certificate. But yeah, that I mean, I still can't actually quite. It's surreal, really. But I'm actually really proud of myself as well. So, and that's a huge thing to even be able to say that, because it's not often you say that as a teacher, or feel it as a teacher, is it?
No, I
Um,
don't do. I don't in we don't get a chance. You don't get a chance to, do you really? I don't.
no, yeah. So that's new, and that's nice to be able to feel like that sense of pride in myself. So that's a new concept, but yeah,
And
it's
long may
nice.
it continue, by the way, because that's how we should be feeling. Okay, that's
Oh
a
yeah, agree completely. Yeah,
Vicky, thank you so much for sharing everything that you shared, for sharing this space in such an honest and genuine way. I really appreciate it.
you're very welcome.